Hi, everybody. We are live now.
Yep, we are.
Hello. Well, to everyone who is joining us, thank you so much for joining. And I will just start off with quick introductions, and then we'll kick off the actual meat for the session. So we have quite an insights-packed session planned out for you. We have Shibani and Sindhu who are going to be leading the conversation today. Sindhu is our managing director for our MENA arm, and Shibani is our head of enterprise for APAC. Adi is he's our guest for today. He's also going to be chiming in.
Adi is omnipresent in Question Pro. He's everywhere. Apparently.
You see Adi on
Is Question
all of
Pro.
these.
No, good. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, why don't you guys take it over? I'm going to listen in, and we're just going to keep a track of the questions and so on. If anything comes up, we'll let you know.
Yep. Just keep so everybody just keep putting your question in the comments whatever platform you're watching us. If you have a chat option in the chat and comments, and we'll keep addressing it, and we'll also bring up the questions at the end of the session. Okay, over to you guys.
Awesome. So, the show is going to be, as you can see in the title, everything about customer journey, right? So the reason we're talking about journeys in the first few shows itself is because it's where the design of your entire CX program starts. Right? The only way you're going to understand, what your customers' perceptions are is if you're going to be able to put yourself in your customer's shoes. And journey mapping is just the right tool to do that. Right? Quite often, at least what I've seen, organizations run, customer journey maps from the lens of the business processes. So things like, sales process, things like maybe a support a channel or a support process. But what they're not really thinking about is because they're not putting themselves in the customer's shoes, they don't really understand or think of it from a customer's perspective. So what is it the customer's trying to achieve? Not really what is the action that they're taking, but what are all the associated thoughts, the emotions, and everything that goes into completing that particular action, right? Of course, is going to take us through all of this in detail. But just before we start and I hand it over to her, just a few key things that I hope you'll be able to take away from this show. The first one, of course, why is it important? Why do you need to get that organizational buy-in? What goes into creating a journey map and the steps that need to be taken to ensure that it's a successful process, because there is going to be time and dedication that's put into it. So what do you need to do to ensure that it's a success? How do you ensure prioritization and accountability of this within the organization? And we're going to, for everyone who's attending this show, thank you very much for joining. We'll also be sharing a template with y'all so that it gives you a good base to build that customer journey map using that template, right? So yes, having said that, I hope that gives you good takeaways from the show. And Sindhu, over to you.
Thanks, Shibani, Prachi, for that good introduction. So, in fact, I was going to do a lot of talk through with this session, but somebody gave me feedback that they'd rather not look at our faces and focus on possibly a few slides. So with that much creation that's gone into making these slides, I'm hoping that, we can talk through a lot of the elements with regards to customer journey maps, just, with a few visuals that are in place. So I hope you guys can see the screen now.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so how we start any show quintessentially talking about misconceptions. So let's just touch base on, what are the misconceptions with journey mapping altogether, right? The very first question being, do we really need a map? There are companies running quite successfully without having a journey map in place. But the real notion of the way you look at this is most companies do have a visualization of what they think their journey map is in their minds, if it's not on paper. So realistically, yes, you do need a customer map. And if you think you don't have one or you don't need one, and if you're running a business, believe me, you already have one in your mind. So journey maps are important. Journey maps do form the basis of helping you understand what your process looks, how your process is interpreted by your customers. And in order to make it completely successful, you want to understand, what does this overall flow look like. And again, the other misconception is, I have a journey map and I'm good. Thank you very much. But the truth of that matter is you can't really have a single journey map. There is no one map fits all solution. Sure enough, it could be, at the moment, journey map, but realistically, the map might change depending on who we're talking to. For example, if I were to put a child on that same pathway as an adult traversing it, that map would change pretty drastically. So sure enough, it's there, but it changes based on who's really walking down that path. And the last part is it truly set in stone? So no journey map is really set in stone. The idea is to have an iterative way of looking at things. So while you might identify what the journey is, as you go along that journey and as you identify pain points, you want to iteratively ensure that you make that journey better, and hence that map keeps automatically modifying itself. Of course, there are a lot more misconceptions. It all comes down to what your perspective is of the business that you're running, but we won't go deep dive too much into it. So the key question, where do I start? Where do I really begin? And, how do I start off with looking at my journey map? So first and foremost, we need to understand that when we talk about a journey, you can have multiple journeys for the exact same path. And let's just take a very simple example. I want to buy myself a bag, very common thing that all women need. The journey that I traverse with a specific company might change very much if it's digital versus physical. I might be walking into a store in order to pick up this bag versus I might go online to purchase it online. So that map will change very drastically depending on where I'm going to be going through what steps. So it's important to understand what journey you're trying to map out in the beginning. And there are a lot of elements that drive that question, right? There could be a business impact. What is that end business goal that you're trying to achieve? In most cases, yes, I want to improve my sales revenue, which is a result of the ROI or of having great customer experience. I want to make sure I make my customers' life very easy. I want to make sure that all of their expectations from this experience is met. So when we know that a few of those questions that we already have in our mind that we want to answer, then it's much easier to go in there and say, what journey am I truly trying to pick? Now, again, you could go very much into depth of what journey it is that I want to pick. For example, the same experience of me trying to buy a bag on the store could have different ways, whether you have an application or a website. And within that, there are several different steps, from the way I search for something to finding it, to liking it, adding it to my dream box versus adding it to my cart, checking it out, making the payment. So each of these phases can also be broken down very much into smaller, minute elements. So it really impacts the overall journey. So asking a few questions at the beginning will really help you understand what journey am I truly wanting to look at. And again, there is really no wrong way of looking at this. But if you don't have, in most cases, I see this when I talk to customers, they say, I know what I'm doing. Don't worry about it. My customers are happy. I know my process, which is great, because you, as someone who is running a component of the business or the overall business, it's important for you to know what you are doing. But what you don't know and what you could be blindsided by is what you perceive as a specific process might be experienced completely different by someone else. And there are so many little minute elements that come into the picture, and we'll of course touch base on that with the emotions and the kind of thoughts that I have while I walk through this. Is it really making my life easier? Is it really meeting my expectations? Is this button working the way it's supposed to? When I say purchase, is it automatically taking me to the payment gateway or asking me a bunch of questions that I don't really want to answer? So all of these play into the key of what journey you're looking at picking out. But having a business goal in mind really helps out. The second element is, who are we building this journey for? It's very important, again, to understand. For a company who's selling handbags, surely their target is the women, possibly between the age group of, I don't know, 20 to 60, or maybe you want to break it down based on a specific type of model that you have. So it's very important to understand who is it that who's my target customer when it comes to this product or service that I'm trying to sell. So understanding the persona of that person is equally important because it helps drive at the end of the day the ROI that you're looking for. And of course, the last part is what data am I truly trying to collect, right? What am I trying to achieve with this data? If my management is already telling me, I know what I'm doing, why am I going in again to chop this out? What am I trying to truly identify? And the very simple answer to that is you're trying to understand, are there any pain points? Are there any gaps in the understanding that you already have versus what your customers perceive your expectation to be? So that's the key difference that you're truly trying to identify, and you look at where to begin. Have these four questions in mind. What journey am I trying to capture? Who am I trying to capture this for? What kind of data am I looking at? And what is my ultimate business goal with this data? So this is a very quick stop way of kickstarting off how you want to take this forward. And quite really, I don't have too many slides. I just probably have 2 slides, or maybe this is my last slide. But we'll talk through this. And we'll
actually, Sindhu, if I can just, with those 4 points are super useful, right? Just jumping to the second one that you mentioned about identifying that persona. So, for a typical retail company, yes, it's easy to identify, like you said, right? Your target is just going to be women within this age group. It's perfect. For maybe some of the more complex businesses, how do you suggest they start and identify the right persona that they should be targeting first, right? You can build multiple journey maps, of course, but do you suggest running a market research study, to understand the brand image? Where do you think that they should start?
Question. Yeah, in most cases, what happens is it also depends, right? At what point in your business are you? Are you just starting off? Because then it's all about going by perceptions. This is my ideal customer, right? But in most cases, we're looking at businesses that have already been running. You do have historic information. And if you don't, you can always do a mystery shopping exercise. This is a great way. It's literally walking the path, right? And it's walking the path from a customer's perspective, but also by knowing what the business is trying to achieve. So a mystery shopper is actually capturing a lot of key information that maybe the customer might also not be looking at. So if you want to understand, okay, where do I begin with this key? Try to look at historic data. Try to derive trends out of the historic data that you have. What kind of customers have come in? Is there any demographic information that you have captured from these customers? If not, do you just have their email addresses or phone numbers so you can drop them an email, send them a relational survey, and probably try to capture a little bit more information so you can understand what kind of customers are coming in. But the most easy way is, again, like I say, when we talk about doing a mystery shopping module, it is very important that key internal stakeholders do that same exercise. Because sitting behind a desk and saying, I know what my company is doing might not always be the case when you walk that path, whether it's through digital or physical touch points. So I think the best way to do it is, look at the historic information or try to do a mystery shopping study so it can help you give you an initial point of where you stand.
No, and also, yes, you can put yourself in your customer, do that whole mystery shopping and get an idea of what your customers are experiencing. You can to your customers, like you said, right? Just send them an email, get an understanding of what they went through, maybe shadow them, get their feedback on the different actions that they had to take. Your customers are going through it, so they should be able to help you out with, what trouble they're facing, what they had to go through, what, the different steps that they had to take. So it's good to hear from your customers as well, right? To put that into your map.
Yeah, and again, this is a very key question that many people want to understand. I don't get enough responses. My customers, if I send it to 1,000 people, I just have like 100 people reaching out to me. That is a very good response rate at the end of the day, right? Because customers who respond to you or who are willing to tell you how they feel are truly the passionate customers. The ones who either had an extremely amazing experience or had a mildly to mostly dissatisfied experience. These guys will go out of their way to tell you how they truly felt. In between, it again depends on your placement of asking those right questions. Did you ask them when they just walked out of the store? Did you ask them when they just exited from that shopping cart? So placement of asking that question also plays a big role in how you capture that information. But these are key ways of helping you understand where expectations were either not met or, absolutely superseded what you had in mind. So it's a good question
Yeah,
that it's very
absolutely.
important to ask. So please do stop me and ask me, because I'm just going to be rambling around things that I feel I know. So yeah, I mean, just
absolutely.
trickling down into pretty much what are the key elements of building a customer journey. There are literally just 5 things, and again, you can digress and dissect it and make it many other things. But like I said, the very first thing is truly understanding who is your customer. Do you know your customer? Do you understand who makes you successful at the end of the day as a business? So understanding that sometimes in itself is a large exercise. Sometimes it's not even as simple as we think. It's not even as simple as, oh, it's women in the age group of 20 to 60. No, if you're talking about a specific style of bag, maybe it only caters to women in the age group of 25 to 35, and women above that probably think it's just too silly to buy this handbag. So it's very important, and that persona could change very much based on the product or service or in the journey that they are traversing. So there is a lot of exercises that you can do in understanding the customer. But thanks to Shabani's good questions earlier, I think historic information will give you key trends to start off with as a starting point, right? And again, we've seen in a lot of our workshops that even with historic data, customers believe, hey, this is what I feel that my customers are going through based on what they're telling me. But when you ask the customers, there are key elements that come out which you probably didn't account for. And these key elements help you, redefine who the persona is. Are we actually changing? And sometimes you might not even realize as a business how you might be changing with the times, the trends, the ecosystem, and what's happening around you. So it is kind of good to keep a check on who these customers are. Is something changing in there, or is something that we did to change having an impact on who they are? So this is like a very first step. The second one is, of course, what is the time taken for a customer to go through this journey, right? Let's just take, again, a quick example. I don't know why we're stuck on this handbag buying journey. I think we all need some,
it's a good example.
But yeah, I mean, so think about the fact that, let's say I wanted to buy a bag and I wanted to go to the website and I wanted to order it online, and I'm hoping I could, get it in the next 2 hours. Now, this is a preconceived notion that I have, that this specific store is willing to do, a 1 hour, 2 hour delivery for me because I'm probably a good customer, or maybe that's their shopping model. In many other cases, maybe they might say, hey, there's a 7-day delivery, and so then I'm going to expect that it's going to come in 7 days. And again, if you haven't specified it's 7 working days, I'm probably still going to expect for it to come in a week. So I mean, this is, again, a long shot expectation, but within the journey, when we start to look at the key steps, as I log into the app, I first go and search for the bag that I'm looking for. Now, when I search for it, is this system taking time to pop up and show me this specific model that I'm looking for? Am I able to find that model that I already have in mind as quickly as possible? Am I able to add it to my cart in the most minimum number of steps required? Search, find, add, and checkout. Can you condense that time? And these are the key elements that you want to look for. And as you see, if I were to do the shopping experience, let's say I go in there and I type out the model that I want, and now the system is searching and it's taken 4 seconds too long. We live in the digital age. It is too long. So I'm going to think, man, this is slow. And then if I'm going to find it, I'm going to try and click on it. But the system is designed in the way where I have to click on it. It will open up a different page or a pop-up. And only then can I go in there, select the color, and only then can I add it to my cart. So you are adding 3 different steps. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wouldn't this have just been so much simpler if I could have had that button right there in order for me to click on it? Again, there are multiple examples that we can take. This is just a very simple one. But these thoughts and feelings that I, as a customer, went through are equally important for you to capture as part of this journey. And also, the fact that I'm talking about, I'm looking at an app. The app is the medium, it's the touch point that I'm, interacting with the business. So it's also important to understand, are there multiple touch points in the specific journey? Of course, in this case, it's very simple. I just have, a phone. But what if I walked into the store? I walk into the store, I have to find the specific area where this bag is displayed, or maybe I'm buying myself a dress, and then I need to find where is the fitting room in order for me to go try it out. And imagine if the fitting room is in the other end of the place. So there are several different ways where you look at these touch points as well. So you need to understand, where all can I truly capture feedback from the customer? If the customer walks into the changing room, is there a way for them to tell you if that experience of trying on that dress was good or not? Did they have to walk too far? Did they have to wait too long in a queue because there were too many people and there were too few changing rooms? These are all elements that you take in, and one of the ways to even understand this is the customer effort score in certain cases of the surveys. But the key element is, how much time is it currently taking versus what did we truly visualize it for it to be, right? So doing the journey map will help you identify this, as well as those emotions and thoughts that someone went through, which is why we always say, when you do a journey map, do it with the internal stakeholders, but also do it with real customers, real potential customers, and or possibly even mystery shoppers, because they are willing to come in there and provide feedback, versus a customer who is, has a need or a requirement to purchase your product or service and is giving you feedback. Let me just pause there. I heard Shibani clearing her throat. Question?
No, no, that time it was just clearing my throat. But it is no. I mean, I'm completely on board with everything that you're saying. These are things that you need to take into account when building that out. It is completely on board. No real questions at this point. Also, along those lines, I know we've got, these are the different elements that go into the journey map. We've also got a template in place. Maybe we can end the session out with just, walking them
No,
through
I
what
think
that template
we should
looks
do
like.
definitely do a session on what mystery shopping consists of generally,
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
sometime
yes.
down the line, because it's something
Yep.
that is, people do it extremely ad hoc, like extremely ad hoc. I think it makes sense to even have some kind of a design or some pattern that you want to cover in your mystery shopping, and then kind of analyze it. So it'll be a good one to do down the line, where we just tell people, you know what, these are the 10 recommended things that we recommend that you should do with your mystery shopping, and then see how that goes. But it's something that I think is not
Absolutely.
done as much as it should be,
Absolutely. I
for
think it
sure.
literally calls for another session for that, which is a very good point that you brought up. There is so much more that can add in value in
No,
here. Yeah.
we do it a lot for Question Pro when we are trying to analyze, for example, is the pricing page informative? We
Yeah.
go all the way to do it with the team members also, right? Is your front end staff capable enough to handle the type of volume and the quality of customers that are coming in? I've had mystery shopping folks who we've contracted to actually go through the entire support cycle by actually becoming a customer, trying to do a verification, trying to actually raise a support ticket, and there are amazing data points that come from each. And honestly, everything is a learning. There's not a single thing that they tell me that I'm like, oh yeah, I knew this, right? Everything is a learning, because you are so close to the problem, that you many a times miss out on the most obvious things. I think that
Absolutely.
is, mystery shopping is something that's really critical.
Absolutely. It's such a good point that you raised, right? You are sometimes so close to the problem, and you are so fixated on solving the elements that you
Exactly.
know or have identified, that you sometimes forget to see what else is going on outside. And every time you make a new change here, there could be an impact on the outside to the customer. So, which is why it's a continuous learning process. At the end of the day, you can never really stop doing this. You do build a journey map in this case, but you will also go back and reiterate to see, are there key things that I want to change. So, just summarizing a few of in these points that we spoke through, and we'll probably just take a very quick example, a better one than buying a handbag, maybe, I hope, I don't know. But and then we'll talk through these points as well. And again, when we're talking about the stages, which is exactly when you talk about the overall journey, there are specific stages that you might identify. Like in my case, I open the app, and the page loads up. That's a stage. I search for my bag, or maybe I'm filtering through categories, whatever it is, right? So the search is a stage. Then I'm adding it to my cart, at which point either I'm looking for more options to buy, or possibly looking at checking out. And once I check out, there is a payment stage, and I'm trying to understand, is it as simple as just clicking a button, using Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever key, easier ways of me checking this out. And then of course at the end of that journey is also receiving the product, and did that final product match up to that overall experience of me buying it online versus me buying it in store. So it's also good to do those comparisons. But these emotions that you capture, and I think there are so many different ways of doing journey maps as well, and again it really depends on the amount of time that you have, the amount of resources that you have, which is also, I think, operationally. And Shibani, you spoke about this right in the beginning, as to getting a buy-in from your organization to do this effort, because it is time, it is money that goes into it. Can you truly justify that effort that's being spent? And it's very important to ask these questions in the beginning and highlight the importance and the ROI that you get. If you are able to identify, some of those key thoughts and emotions that you otherwise didn't catch because you already knew that this is the way the process worked, it could have huge impacts on your business. So it is important to get that buy-in in the first phase. Take that hypothesis that you had in terms of what things look like through your mystery shopping, and really put that into reality, visualize that map. And also when you take all of these elements into play, you draw out what could be an as is image, which is, what does it truly look like today, versus a to be image, which is, where do we want to see ourselves? So there are several different ways that you can map that out as well. And again, just going into a few, and I'm sure every time someone talks about journey maps, we think about different colored post-its, because that's how we started off, and each post-it represented either a stage or a touch point or an emotion or a thought. So that, of course,
funny
is,
you
again,
say that, because our template has it's digital, but it looks like post-its.
okay. And also, I mean, importantly, we see today, even Question Pro has its own version of a journey mapping tool that's coming out. So we do want to digitize everything, but we don't want to leave out that physical way of doing it. So eventually in the future, we will have a tool, in the very near future, by probably in a couple of months, we'll have this out, which is, it'll allow you to literally create post-its, huddle them together, probably chalk out graphs based on that data to help you get a real visual feel of what that emotion, the journey looks like. And this could very much change, based on who that person is who's taking the journey, at what time they're taking the journey. This is different from the time taken that I was talking about, but the experience that you get going shopping in a mall at 10 p.m. versus at in peak hours during the day is obviously very different, because there are a lot fewer people. And again, maybe I'm just saying 10 p.m. because malls in Dubai are open till much longer. Probably not the case everywhere else. But so what we will do is, and I want to show you very quickly, this is just a very, very high level sample of what a map could look like. You could chalk this out. Your emotions could truly vary, could differ. And this could be extremely long depending on the number of stages and phases that you have. And then you'll find yourself drawing out a sinusoidal wave to help you understand where you truly stand. Of course, the ideal situation is to always be right on top, where you're able to truly, delight your customers, but it's not necessarily always the case. So for now, I'm just going to stop sharing, hopefully, and we'll talk through some. So let me just see if there are any questions first before we jump in to.
One second.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of questions, I think, around how the mapping would be done for the B2B sector. And I think we covered a lot of examples
B2C.
around B2C, but how do B2B go about it? Maybe this is another session altogether, or whatever your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so B2B. So it again depends, right? When we talk about B2B, the customer becomes your stakeholder, who's another business that you're dealing with. So realistically, the entire situation remains the same, but instead of looking at an end customer or a consumer, you're looking at a different type of a stakeholder whose expectations are probably different, right? Let's say, for example, a logistics company who is catering to possibly a set of businesses who then take those deliveries and provide it to the end customers, right? So for this logistics company, they're only dealing with these businesses that are, getting them these deals. So at the end of the day, for them, it's important to understand how was your experience. Maybe you want to evaluate a vendor registration or a supplier registration, right? So that journey will depend on how those stakeholders are truly managed, or how those stakeholders are meant to interact with you as a business. So not much changes from the overall piece, but it's just looking at who the persona, or who is the person who is now considered the customer.
Yeah, so I think for B2B, I think the main difference is the stakeholders that you're dealing, the decision maker, the buyer, and the end user, the actual person who's experiencing your product is going to be all three different people. So a little different in the way you would have to approach that, right? So we will have a session that's dedicated to B2B because it's slightly different in the way how you build out that journey map, right? With everything that's in those saying, the process kind of remains the same, but you have to keep in mind your the personas that you're dealing with, because there are multiple of them here for the different stages. You're going to have different stakeholders every time, right? So so that's just one thing to keep in mind, the difference between a B2B and B2C.
Great,
Absolutely.
great. I think that's perfect. So fundamentals are, let's say, are the same, but there are a bunch of other things which we'll focus more on. We'll do probably another session just to help our B2B clients. Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
Absolutely.
Great.
Anything else
Adi,
in the?
you had picked out a question?
Yeah.
You're
on mute, Adi.
Oh man, no, I didn't pick it out. You got it anyway. That's good.
Perfect.
Okay,
My only question is, are you all going to go buy bags after this? Is the only question, but you can take that for the last.
I think so.
Why not?
Everyone is like,
it's always a good
bag.
day to buy a bag.
No, it absolutely is. But I mean, I absolutely need to. So I think we've touched based on a lot of the high level elements of journey mapping. You could take multiple different examples to truly visualize what this journey map would be. And let's just take, for example, the telecom industry. Everybody has phones today. Everybody uses some provider at the end of the day. And for a telecom industry, there are different stages for which they would map out, a journey. For example, a new customer who's coming on board versus an existing customer who is either, changing a plan or upgrading or just renewing, and possibly even closing out that specific account. And we'll probably just focus on the first one, which is, let's say if I wanted a SIM card, and if I were to go in or try to get myself a SIM card, how do I actually what is the process that I go through, and how do you truly look at and evaluate how I would feel? And I'm just going to give you maybe a simple personal example that I've had. We also travel a lot these days, again only starting to, but when we do, there are countries where you would they will hand you a SIM card when you just enter the country, and you're free to use it for a certain period of time. But all countries require that after a specific time, they need to have an ID proof in place. They need to know and validate who this person is who has the phone, because they want to make sure there's no illegal use of this card. So when I moved to Dubai, I remember when I got a SIM card, the best way for me to have provided them documents was I could just log into the app, create an account, and I could tie down my SIM card in there, and very easily I could actually upload my documents, and they would automatically verify it to me. I found this step, of course, very, very simple, which was probably not the experience that we've all had in the past as well, because sometimes they will require you to walk into the store because for some reason their software is not working, or they're not able to verify. They need an attested version, or they need to really truly look at your face because they don't trust what you're uploading, right? So this specific way of looking at how do you onboard a customer, what are the steps that they're going through, what are the sub steps that come out as a result because this initial step was not met or it had to be changed. So realistically, there's so many different ways of looking at this journey, but to a business, they want to make sure it's as simple and easy and short as possible in order for you to go in there and get your SIM card and have a great experience. Again, I think we already went through so much of an example. I'm really not able to map out because I don't have a visual way of showing you, what we've done for a few of our customers. I wish I could. But if there are any questions around it, you can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer these from my side as well. But planning out, mapping out, visualizing it, and truly looking at, what that journey would look like to you, to your customer, and seeing if they map and they coincide is what is the most important part.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah.
Are we going to go over the template also? Or are we just going to share the template?
We can do both.
Shivani,
To just give an overview of what
you
the
can just do
template
like a
looks like.
quick run up, and
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
just do a quick review on that. And then
Sindhu, do you want to share it? Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah, I would love for you to share it because I have too many docs opened up in here. So
Give me a second.
Yeah, and we're definitely also sending it out via email after the session.
All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the multicolored post-its that Sindhu was referring to, but and we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. Where to start, those pointers there, what all gets included as part of your journey map. We've kind of numbered it out. Second. Your first one, put down your objective, right? So that's your number one thing to do, which is the persona that you're building out the entire journey map for. We've, of course, given you a template for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but you can have as many phases depending on the journey that you're selecting. This is where you put down your action. So what really is the action that the customer is going through within that phase? Which are the touch points that they're interacting with? So the channels, the touch points. And then, what are the thoughts and feelings of your customers? This is where you kind of, put that down, as detailed as possible, right? So this, you don't have to stick to exactly this. You can expand, contract, keep it as, but make sure every single point when you're discussing it with your team members, and like Sindhu was saying, right, to get your organization buy-in, it's not just your leadership buy-in. In order to pull in things like what is the action that the customer is doing for a payment stage, you're going to need the payment team to be involved in that. You're going to need your, your frontline people, especially when you're looking at coming to a store, what really are the actions that the customer does. So have that meeting with everyone in the organization so that you can make this as detailed as possible for each of them. And because you have all of these representatives from the different departments within the company, you're going to be able to put in who are going to be the process, the ownership within the company, who's going to take on the feedback that comes from your customers within each of these touch points and actually action upon them. Right. So we've put in here the accountability, right? Your version, when was this created, and who are the team members that were involved as part of building out this journey map. So it can get, we try to keep it as simple as possible just to give you that base template, that base structure to build upon. Any questions, guys? I covered it as
no, that's
broadly as
good.
I
Like I
could.
said, it's good. People will share this with everybody via email, so you guys can access it and Obviously, if you guys have any questions, reply back to the email or talk it out in the next session. We'll kind of keep showing more templates like these.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to add that you emphasize on a very good part of accountability in there, and just in terms of understanding the versioning, when was this created, why are we reiterating, so we understand what true changes went through between one version and the other. So yeah, thank you for putting that together.
Fantastic. I think that's all we have for today.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody, and see you. I think next week we're not meeting next week. It's a holiday,
Yes.
so we'll be meeting the
We
week
have a break
after
next
that.
week.
So happy Diwali to everybody in advance, and see you right after that. Take care.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
for having me on,
Bye,
guys.
everyone. Thank you.
Please keep talking to us on comments and with emails.
Bye.
We will be back. Yeah, goodbye.